Hello, guys. Good morning. So, guys, today's webinar is all about privacy in Metaverse, right? We are here to discuss, right? This is a discussion between you and us and everyone here, right? With the speaker to see where are we going in this world? Where is this 100,000 speeds, right? Rocket speed technology is moving, right? Where are we going towards? And if we are going that fast, should we have some foundations to it, right? There should be some governance around it, right? We already have seen things as brutal as rape cases in metaverse, right? It's serious, right? Because when you are in metaverse, you want to be serious, right? You, even if you're using it here and there, the companies who own these metaverse need to think about governance, need to think about things as important as consent. Even when some countries do not have a privacy law, metaverse governance should be different, because altogether Web3 technology is going to change us, change our future, make it decentralized, right? People who already have played games on PlayStations, you know the drill, right? You know the game. But people who have not played that PlayStations, right? We are in the drill together, right? That's how the games will start, right? We are going there and we are moving there step by step. We will start. So basically, my name is Akash Singh. I am CEO, co-founder of Tsaaro and Tsaaro Academy. I am CIPPE. I'm again a certified professional of privacy, CIPPE, CIPM, a fellow in information privacy by IAPP, and I'm also in IAPP advisory boards. Started this company 1.5 years ago with my fellow co-founders Rohit and Krishna. We do a lot of work around technology privacy consulting, like implementations of OneTrust, Big ID, do some privacy compliance work, plug in technologies with security solutions, VAPTs, ISO 27001s, and obviously we are the largest academy in India of privacy. If you think about a privacy training, and even if you don't know us, if you Google us, right, you will find us, right? And obviously, the man in charge today, right? The man in focus today is Mr. Anand Deshpande. He's Director of Data Privacy and Data Protection in MasterCard. He is an exceptional privacy professional. And when I don't know him directly, where people have given me things directly, but people who I teach sometimes, they also come back and say, hey, I talked to Mr. Anand and he told me I should do this in my career. And these are the stories that go around Mr. Anand. And this is very personal, that I also want to tell him that I get these stories around. And so it's a great honor to have you here. And we're looking forward to a great session, Mr. Anand. Would you like to do a short introduction for yourself as well?
Sure, no problem. First of all, Akash, thank you so much for having me, and good morning and good evening to all of you. Those who are in Australia and other region of the world, good afternoon to you. As Akash introduced, my name is Anand Deshpande. I did my master's in information technology and privacy law. Of course, lawyer by nature. And apart from that, my 16 years of experience in this domain, I handle a wide variety of areas like GRC, governance, risk and compliance, the security, the audits. Talking about the certifications, I already have 16 certifications with me, including CISA, CIPM, CISM, CISA, ISO 27001, CDPAC, and more to add to it. Today's topic is of my heart. This is something on which I'm keeping an eye, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I expect that this conversation would go as an interactive conversation. So please feel free to ask any questions in between and post it in the chat box, right, Akash? So that we can take those questions. Or else, Akash, if you have any plan that we can have this session, the Q&A session at the end of our presentation, probably we can take it from there. Akash, over to you.
I was just trying to, just kind of quantify this. So see, again, as I kind of say, people who have already been, I know there are loyal people who are here again and again to our webinars, because there's a great amount of discussion that happens. So please drop in your questions in the chat or in Q&A. We will take them up, right? So there's no doubt about that. Obviously, every session of Tsaaro opens up for Q&A. Before last 10 minutes, it will open up, right? You can ask anything that you point out to our speaker. Okay. And obviously me. So this is a disclaimer. We are just doing a discussion. First of all, this is not a legal advice. The speakers do not represent their companies. And yeah, if you are recording this session, please don't. We will record it and put it on YouTube, right? But this session is not to be recorded, right? This is just for reference and educational purposes. All rights of this session are reserved by Tsaaro. Okay, the agenda of the day is we talk about what is this metaverse that we talk about. Then we move on to things about what is the significance of data privacy in metaverse, issues posed by metaverse. What are these factors we need to consider before we shift towards metaverse? Are there any legal concerns in metaverse that you should think about before joining it? If you've not already joined it, you will join it. That is the future. We'll have to go there directly, indirectly. It may not be the part of our future 100%, but it will definitely be 5%, 2% of our lives in coming days, right? It will definitely not be 100%, right? We'll be live. We will enjoy our trees. We'll enjoy the weather. We'll enjoy positive energy. But just for 2% of our lives, we'll definitely look at metaverse. And what are these steps taken by Facebook? Right, we'll talk about that. So my question to Mr. Anand Deshpande, before we start this session, what is this buzzword metaverse, Anand?
So see, this is something which is an interesting topic. I guess this is the outcome of COVID. COVID has shifted many people who were quite rigid earlier to move to the technology background. And it has taught us, that we can have our work done or social activities done through virtual channels like Zoom. Now, this metaverse is a kind of a technology where you feel that physically you are present in a digital world, in a very simple word to understand it. And that particular world is something we drive with different technologies, like you have artificial intelligence, you have augmented reality, you have virtual reality. That's the combination of all. And for this world, what you are going to use is something like different types of masks, which carry sensors, different types of glasses, which carry sensors, which can track your eye motions and facial expressions, and they can put you in a different avatar, what they call it as, into a digital space. It's like you're live, truly live in a digital world. And you're, just to give a quick example, if you're dozing off in a meeting, right, your manager can see your facial expression, whether you have closed your eyes. So it goes to that deep kind of a capturing of your information. When I say information, I would call it just information as of now, because it's going to be a sensitive information, because all the sensors are capturing and profiling you every time. So it's going to be something big rather than something which is just a regular piece of technology, which would just shift a focus. So metaverse is going to be the next big word. So as you rightly said, Microsoft had started working on it. Along with that, Facebook has started working on it. Now, if you look at those two particular companies, Microsoft is thinking specifically from a very corporate perspective, right? Like they have Office 365. Likewise, they are thinking how metaverse can be used in such an environment where everything goes digital, right? And if you look at the Facebook world, they think more from a social perspective. How can people socially connect? But then both of them will have different governance and different laws which will come into force. And especially for those who are into privacy, security, information security audits, implementation, we have a long career, right? This privacy engineers, we have a long career. So our bread and butter is not going to go away. We are going to challenge each other, and we are going to challenge legislators. It's going to be a challenge even for the judges in various countries to understand, adopt, interpret the technology, and decide the judgment coming out of those cases which are filed before them, right? So I'll just take a pause before we go further.
Yeah, definitely. I think honestly, Mr. Anand, right, I was not thinking about a judge's perspective before coming to this session, but now I feel that if it's so tough for me, what will happen the moment somebody file a case around it? So it's going to be another world altogether, right? It's a matrix, right? Another matrix from a perspective of judge, right, and a lawyer, right? How to fight a case, how to bring justice to people. Okay.
In the Q&A, I guess Dean has nailed some concept over here. the main question is if the physical items can be brought and sold. Again, that's something to look forward, Dean, here, that whether companies like e-commerce websites, how are they going to use this particular metaverse? Because as of now, first entrant, what I have researched out of my research is that major healthcare sector is something making their pioneering in this particular domain with metaverse, because that way they can connect to people remotely, and then from there they can do the treatments as if it is a live session, like for example some clinical trials. But again, like I said, this particular metaverse concept, it's still in a very beta phase. Still a lot of testing, a lot of work needs to be done, a lot of result needs to be assured, because something what we know coming out of GDPR is accountability. So if you implement something like this, and what are going to be your laws, what are going to be your policies, what are going to be your terms and conditions, right? All these things needs to be seen very carefully before you roll it out. And Aditya, again, coming back to your question, will this block VDAs? That's something, again, we are going a little ahead, but from a perspective of, I would say, ransomware and exchange of currencies, all these things, yet a lot of research is required to be done. How it is to be done, as of now, in most of the countries, the crypto is still not valid currency. Now, if it is not a valid currency, how will you do a contract? How will you pay someone? If there are any disputes with respect to money, how they need to be dealt with, right? So all these pointers needs to be come up, needs to be thought of properly. Unless we come out of beta version, somebody proves a test case to the world, at least for any sector, I would say here, it may be e-commerce, it may be your healthcare industry,
Right.
it can be gaming industry for that matter.
Right, sir.
Once this is done, probably we may have some sort of benchmarking from where we can climb and decide how your organization, if
Definitely.
you are a inventor of this currency, this can be looked
Yeah.
into it.
I think moving on then to specific questions, we will take specific questions. If the question is different from the topics, we will take it to the last now. But moving on, right? Thinking about why data privacy? Why in metaverse? I know everybody now knows, since these WhatsApp messages have started, since number of messages, number of marketing agencies target us so much, right? We already are tired with this, right? We do not want so many marketing mailers. Educational stuff, still fine, but when we think about so much of marketing content being thrown to us, it doesn't make sense. And now when we'll go to metaverse, leaving our reality to a virtual reality, why is privacy so significant, Mr. Anand?
So, Akash, the answer I think lies in the name metaverse itself, as it is going to use the sensors to capture your personal data. So you can imagine what is getting mined, right? When I say from a data mining perspective, all the data with respect to your physical appearance, with respect to your, what do you call it as, motions, like your eye motions, your mouth, your facial expression, everything is going to be there, right? So you can imagine how these things are going to be looked into from a privacy perspective. Now, say, for example, if you wish to buy something online, right? I think I'll take the example, what even Aditya was saying earlier, that if somebody wants to buy something and they are walking somewhere in Los Angeles and they want to buy something, if you try to buy that, how do you buy that, right? That's something which needs to be seen, how that's going to be worked. But then at the same time, how that good's going to be delivered, right? So such a data, or you do a window shopping, if you think you don't have a budget or you don't have a plan to buy in this month, you can go and check what's happening. And then such a data can be shared back with the companies or the product manufacturing organizations. Like, say, for example, I will take a name of Gucci, right? They can they can have your data and start individual marketing to you. You're bombarded with those mails. So there can be various uses coming out of this particular data, which is mined by these particular companies over there. I hope that answers question.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are pinging me saying, "Hey, Aditya, I would love to connect with you and take this."
Me too, definitely.
So there's no doubt about it, right? It's good. I think I am, and I think even with my friends around, I am discussing about it, and I'm thinking about a lot of use cases even for Tsaaro, right? Because when we think about us as a company, We want to solve a problem of the future, right? And we want to be there to help people out, right? Because increased data governance, because there are so many founders around in the industry who need us as Tsaaro, because Tsaaro is the data governance where you can help give more confidence to your customers. So why not? So are the categories of personal data collected same for Metaverse and other platforms of data sharing? Yes or no, or maybe?
And in interim, Akash, I would just add a couple of more points on this. Like we were discussing about, currencies and all these things, or e-commerce exchange, value exchange, whether it can be a barter exchange or anything, right? Lot of tech companies, including the open banking platforms, are still investigating that how the things can work in the metaverse for them, because that's going to be a next business channel for many organizations, right?
Right. So major issues posed by Metaverse. So again, Mr. Anand, since you're here, what are these major issues that are posed by Metaverse? If we talk about a marketplace, a data security, user interactions, we try to divide this into three parts, by the way, just to understand, because Metaverse is such a huge concept, right? We don't know. It's like internet. Now, if you think about internet or a shopping website, even shopping websites, e-commerce is like 1,000 types, right? So we just want to see, hey, marketplace, data security, user interactions. What are these issues, right? If you want to take one by one, we would love to hear from you.
Sure, absolutely. So, from a marketplace perspective, let me first talk about. I think before we go for a poll, I guess I just spoke about the transactions, right? Typically, a transaction world, how the open banking or cryptocurrency, the recent infrastructure about the PCI data, or say, your tokenization kind of a thing is going to work in this particular space. That's something which is going to be a challenge from what I believe. Again, we all know internet is boundaryless. There is no doubt about that. But then metaverse is going to explore it to a big time fashion, where all these things are going to put a challenge before the legislators as to how they think that this can be governed. First of all, many people are against the governance by law on all these things. But again, this is something which is lawyer's job to make sure things are governed, because there could be issues coming out of it. So that's something which is very important. Another thing from a security perspective, which I believe is about the theft, right? When I say theft, I'm particularly using a broad word. It talks about the identity theft also. It talks about the theft from a currency perspective, like the stealing credit cards and maybe open banking, usernames, and all these things. So typically, that is also going to put all these things. And imagine your sensitive data, which is profiled, if that gets stolen, then you're actually identityless in this world, right? Similarly, if you look at the other perspective of the organizations who are going to face ransomware on all these things, how this is going to be tracked, or how this is going to be investigated from a forensics perspective or from a cybercrime investigation perspective, that needs to be looked into a lot. And from a user interaction perspective, again, one of the simple challenge, those who know the security part, identity and authentication, that's something which is going to be a key issue, because all the way biometrics is going to be used in this, right? So your eye, when I say eye contacts and all these things, it's going to scan your retina also at the same time. You have sensors on your facial expression, so probably that those things will also get captured in this, right? So there are situations where we feel that this technology may break the laws which are in existence right now, because the laws needs to be matured as we implement technology. Again, this is my personal thinking. Technology is more proactive and moving faster as compared to law, and law is quite reactive to the technology, right? So because so that's going to be a kind of a race, and these are going to be a couple of challenges, what I believe are major challenges from the industry perspective.
Yeah, I just want to take a fireside few questions. I know there are some very interesting and very important questions here. So Mr. Anand, who will be liable in the end, right? Let's think about liability. And I think PlayStation is a great example because it's already in use, right? So let's play with PlayStation. So now my suggestion is I bought PlayStation. I have PlayStation in my house. I'm using PlayStation playing the game, right? It's like any game that we play and in VR, right? It's virtual reality. So who's liable, right? Let's say some issue happens, Mr. Anand, then who is liable?
So, the person who commits a crime, that's a simple way to look at it. And the person who is providing of this platform, right? Because if the platform goes notorious, that also will be liable. And if you are committing a crime, you're also liable equally for that. Because obviously, platform is given to you for some ethical purposes and some legal purposes. If you start selling guns by using these particular platforms, definitely platform has no control. So they have to go and chase you down and arrest you for that matter, and you will be liable for that. But again, platform will also have the accountability that to observe that no illegal activities are happening on these platforms.
Yeah, I think to our next question then, a very important question. A question is, there already we have some data protection laws around the world, very stringent laws. If you look at Europe, look at US, the principle of GDPR itself is accountability, right? We have a principle which says accountability, right? Controller is accountable, right? Okay, in GDPR we have, and Mr. Anand, I think you're here from 16 years, right? And I'm here from 5 years. It's interesting to see there is some accountability around. So a question very specific, right? Would GDPR, POPEDA in South Africa, CCPA in the US, PIPL, PDPL, just like nowadays I can throw a jargon and it will definitely end up to a privacy law, right? There's so many privacy laws in the world, right? I can just say PPPA and there will be a law, right? It's that many now. So now the question is, privacy laws are there. If I sell my Metaverse product in Europe, will GDPR apply to me?
Yeah, definitely. See, one simple reason, GDPR is a industry neutral, technology neutral law, right? Definitely it will apply. There is no doubt about that. However, the organization will have a big time challenge to prove themselves before data protection authorities, before the consumers, that how their technology or their platform is complying with the requirements of GDPR. For example, since you're using all the sensitive information in this, how effective is your DPI, data privacy impact assessment? How effective are your security controls? What kind of proactive and reactive compensating controls you are maintaining in your environment? How frequently are you auditing your platform to make sure nothing is going wrong? What is the breach mechanism? What is the breach report timing? How are we going to investigate in both in terms of internal investigation and forensics investigation also on these platforms? Now, if you can answer these things, GDPR will definitely help. But again, in my opinion, a balancing test will be equally required before we 100% assure someone that, hey, use Metaverse, GDPR will apply, and once it is compliant, you are through with this. It's very aggressive to say this, right? So a balancing test will be definitely required, because since when you, as you all already know, that in GDPR.
Yes, Mr. Anand, Priya has a great question. So Priya, but I just want to give a disclaimer before this. I'm not thinking about this in depth nowadays because I don't want to, right? So the question is, how exactly would such a crime take place in Metaverse? So again, not thinking about this, but a good question. There is a great lawyer with us, right? So Mr. Anand, if you would have thought about okay, let's not put it that way. If you have seen or heard, or there is a case that you studied about Metaverse crime, so would you like to discuss it? Quickly just wrap around it. Just tell Ms. Priya on how you would do. No, not you would do, but just saying.
Okay, so rather than wearing a hat of a lawyer, let me wear hat of an ethical hacker.
Ethical criminal.
Yeah, ethical, but not criminal, I would say, because crime cannot be done ethically. So the point, Priya, here is very simple, right? I'm wearing my ethical hacking hat, and as an ethical hacker, one thing what I can steal from this particular Metaverse is about your biometrics. I would do footprinting, that, who is using what are your profiles, what are your profile pictures, right? What are your preferences? What are the weak vulnerabilities exist within the platform? Can I get the admin access to these platforms, right? Guys, please do not use all these techniques, right? There are social engineering mechanisms which are possible. I'm just saying all this as a part of education. not for the purpose of implementing and trying something out. Tomorrow you will land up in jail and you will help me
Yeah,
accountable. Don't do that.
and this session is just for educational purposes.
Education.
So
Yeah.
we are just educating, but yeah, not for that. So again, fun apart, this is serious, right? It's the crimes are getting serious and more serious, right? Over the period of time, the theft of NFTs, the theft to logins, right? Because tomorrow, if you have an avatar and somebody else wears your avatar, does an identity theft, right? And let's say you have a group of friends or you own some NFTs in it, it can be a huge loss. So, fun apart, the crimes are coming, and ethical hackers have already, not ethical, hackers have already started hacking in, trying to get information. And there are a few very famous countries whose business run on this, right? So we have to be correct. We have to be right. Please at least enable 2FAs, right? I know the network is not encrypted where your information comes, but still, just do at least those things, right? When you are getting into metaverse, try to do maximum privacy and security controls. We'll talk about that also, but just to point out a few things. So, Mr. Anand, let's say after this webinar, right? And not just after this webinar, after researching about metaverse, thinking about metaverse day in and day out, what are the things that I should think about? I should have a clarity about before I operate in metaverse. What are the things that I should think about? Let's say I also have to choose a metaverse, right? There are different metaverse. We have Facebook, we have Microsoft, and on, right? So which one? What should I think before choosing one or getting into this? Wearing a headset, buying a VR headset. What are the things that I should think about, Mr. Anand?
So one thing is very simple, Akash. First, since we all are from privacy and security domain or risk domain, what we should understand is how privacy by design has been implemented in that particular metaverse platform. What are the representations and warranties, assurances given by those platforms through their privacy notices, through their terms and conditions? Usually, even though we are privacy lawyers, we kind of ignore all this and we just click next, 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 and then we are on the platform and then we see, wow, that's a fantastic experience. But then before we get into that experience, first read how your information is going to be used. Choose your right settings, something which is most important. People start crying. I've seen this particular example. People start crying that, I lost my privacy or lost my identity. And then they figure out that, hey, have you done the right settings into your platform? The next big thing, when you use such kind of wearables, I would simply say, you need to understand what are you consenting for? What things are being captured by those sensors or those wearables and where it is going to be used? Who will have access to that? Now, you must have read the recent notification which is coming from the European board, EDPB, which talks about data transfer mechanism, right? International data transfer mechanism. You also need to know where your data is going. If your data is going to such a country where they do not have adequate privacy laws and there are a lot of cases, a lot of hacking or a lot of cases of cyber crimes, then definitely you are not safe. Don't select such platforms, right? How much transparency these platforms are keeping with you, that's another thing which you need to look for. So these are some of the things which I would say per se at a very high level you should investigate. And another, last but not the least, how quickly can you withdraw your consent and delete your account or delete your data from such platforms? Because it is very important in this particular scenario how your data subject access rights can be executed. If your data is getting sold under the CCPA or CPRA for that matter, when you talked about those laws, how your data is going to be sold to someone, right? Those are the key areas you should consider before you yourself operate the metaverse.
I think these are the key things we definitely got to understand. But again, let's taking up a few questions. I think there's a great question here, right? And you are a lawyer, so I'm just posting this to you, Mr. Anand, right? Not taking it up myself. So if someone committed a crime, I don't know why there are so many criminal questions, but this is for you, right? So this is for you, okay? So if someone committed a crime, what should be the punishment? Virtual or physical? By the way, people, we are still not in Singapore, and do not throw chewing gums on the road.
So again, I'm not from a legislature background, so I'm just a lawyer who will argue your case in court of law if required. But then again, it is the legislator to decide. I'm sure there won't be any virtual punishments, because if you look at the cyber crimes in any geography, in any part of the world, there are no virtual punishments. Say, for example, if some person commits a crime, they are barred from using internet for so many years, right? It was possible somewhere earlier, but now, considering the 5G spectrum coming up, the number of users connecting and using internet, it's going to be next to impossible, right? So definitely there'll be physical punishment. So it also amounts for the investigators or the platform providers. How are they going to track back the person who is using this platform for all these purposes? I guess Kriti has put up a question with respect to your KYC, anti-money laundering and all that. Absolutely, combating financing terrorism, everything will be definitely needs to be covered before they roll out these platforms. Because I gave an example at the start of the session that if this particular platform is used for selling of guns, that's going to be something which is a big time headache for all the governments. Similarly,
Yeah.
this terror financing, money laundering are going to be big issues for them. And again, for an organization, when we work typically from a data minimization perspective, the organization also asks the question to themselves: do I really need to do the KYC for every individual joining my platform? Because that way they will have huge data, huge liability, so many controls which will come up, and that needs to be maintained by the organization, which is another big cost. So the cost of platform for individuals to use is may not be that effective, and the compliance
Right.
cost would increase.
See, there are a lot of things, right? People look at things like compliances, right, laws as breaks to technology innovation, right? Howsoever, similar startups, right, similar companies who are getting bigger, or companies like Facebook, right, start playing with users' privacy,
Yeah.
right, and which leads to automatically, after they become so big, playing around with our privacy, you can see their shares going down, right? Already same thing is happening. Once the user is aware about his privacy, we want our privacy, right? This is our right. This is a fundamental right. Even in India, right, the privacy is our fundamental right, and we need to make sure a platform which is building on it needs to make sure that privacy and governance go hand in hand, and identity theft should be kept at a check. Now, moving on to our next question. But this question is for you. So, Mr. Anand, if let's say we use PlayStation, right? Just making things practical, right? Which is already in use, right? And if some type of issue happens, right? An identity theft, something happens, right? What type of laws apply today also, right? What are these laws that are still applicable today, right? In India, right? Then
So,
we'll take about US or somewhere, but just starting with it, yeah.
yeah. So specifically, Akash, if you see from India perspective, we have IT Act, we have IPC coming into picture. IT Act, if you refer to Section 72A, that typically talks about breach of privacy over there, right? For identity theft, there are sections under the IT Act. For hacking, there are sections under the IT Act, right? So all those sections are still there. The only question is about people taking a step to go and register the crime with the police and making sure that investigation gets completed and accurate to that particular point, and it is presented before the court, right? So in India, it's not that India doesn't have anything. So let's not underestimate the Indian laws per se. India has very good laws per se, although they are old, still they are enforceable. So and we are global in nature, India as a country. So you can imagine that these laws are still applicable. If you refer to Section 72A of IT Act, I think that will give you a kind of a confidence, which talks about the contract violation in terms of breach of privacy.
Right. So is reduced perception of physical space a privacy concern in metaverse? Definitely, right? Definitely. I think I think if you have kids, right? If we are in 40s, right? And if we have kids which are in around age of 12 to 19, I know all the parents have a headache right now because everyone is on iPad, right? And everybody needs a tab, right? And a headphone, right? And they are well versed with the world, and there is no child. There's nothing called a child lock, right? Come on, right? And so yeah, I think children are more smart than parents in terms of technology. So locking someone's phone is impossible, right?
Oh,
It's
you
near to
bet.
impossible, right?
You bet. My
So
kids know my phone passwords also. So
okay, I'll think twice now messaging you, by the way, now. So those jokes are for next time, sir. So
sure.
major data privacy concerns in metaverse.
Yeah.
Like, what are the major concerns? Like, if we're talking about privacy, right? We keep on talking about privacy, but still, what is the major concern? I know if you look at today's society, right? Today's society around us, we are polarized,
Yeah.
right? Again, I'm not saying that Donald Trump won in US, but I'm just saying we're polarized. We have social engineering attacks around us. We have credential thefts around us. We have reduced perception. We have ransomwares. Since I am in cybersecurity, the amount of issues I've heard about ransomwares, the moment you are, I think a lot of people ask me, who should be wary of a ransomware, right? And this is an answer to everyone. Who should be wary of a ransomware? If you have something to hide, hide it well. That's the easiest way to put a ransomware's ransom on. Because if a company, and even if it's true for a company also, right? It's true for a person. If you're a high net worth individual, you would like to keep yourself fenced, right? Don't just forget passwords. Don't use the same password because you have something that people are trying to take from you. So the moment you have something, hide it well, right? That's what I'm trying to convey nowadays. Security risks of AR, identity theft, security risks of VR. See, even if something is not happening in physical reality, if something is happening in virtual reality, you're still watching it. You're still in that experience. If you have watched PlayStation with VR headsets, or even if you have gone to a play arena where you use those headsets and sat in there, see, at that moment, when you are connected to a VR, come on, guys, right? You are not in 100% control. So a platform needs to make sure something doesn't happen. Now, let's think about as simple as somebody wants to harm you and you are using that VR headset, and somebody who is a hacker increases the volume when you are inside, volume to max, your eardrums will burst, right? What about that, right? How will you contest that? I am just giving an example, right? Just things that are coming to my mind. What will happen if you don't have control over your volume, right? As simple as volume, right? I'm not even talking about things. I'm just talking about volume. You are caught off guard, right? But yeah. So
So
over to Mr.
Akash,
Anand. Yeah.
absolutely to your point, I completely buy that point. So, one thing for those who are from technology background, secure programming, right? Platform governance from a VAPT perspective, because how a Trojan will work into your environment. You just gave the example of increasing the volume, right? Or muting someone when somebody's speaking, right? Or making offensive avatar when you are in a professional environment due to the using Trojans, right? How this can be avoided. That is something which needs to be seen and which needs to be kept a control of by those companies who are using this platform. For those audience who wishes to read the books or who wants to are curious to books, I would recommend a book by Kevin Mitnick. The name of the book is Art of Deception. Please try to read that book. It's an amazing book. It's a way old book, somewhere written around 2006, 2007, but those concepts given by Kevin Mitnick still prevails in a social engineering world. Ransomware is not just a program. Remember, it is done out of the social engineering, right? COVID doesn't come to you directly unless you come in contact with someone, then only COVID comes to you, right? Similarly, unless you give an opportunity to someone or open a door, then only the thief will enter into your house. Or you give them an opportunity to break your house by showing some weakness. Say window is open, window doesn't have a grill, right? Then only such things will come into picture. So imagine the security risks are immense. Yeah, the name of the book is The Art of Deception.
So if you have any specific questions, I know there are a lot of questions in the chat. I'm just going to read them out now. But if you have any specific questions, and if you want to connect with me or Mr. Anand or have a discussion on data governance, right? Tsaaro is here for you. And if you're just here to listen and you want to know more privacy updates, there's a WhatsApp update link in the chat. Just click there and you'll just add it. we'll just breach privacy, by the way, but you'll get added to our group in WhatsApp, right? But we can just do better. Come on, guys. Right? So it's a group just for updates. We just keep all the updates of Tsaaro, international updates in WhatsApp groups. It's easy to use. Come on, right? It's ease of access versus privacy. You can just join that group. Okay, there's a question where, again, I think this is the lawyer has to answer it. So Mr. Anand, this is for you. Will intermediary liability be applicable for platforms such as Meta? So Metaverse is not a platform, it's a concept, but let's take Meta as the platform. So for Meta.
Absolutely. So if it is Meta, if it is Microsoft, definitely the liability will come into picture, provided you will have to prove and crystallize the liability over there, right? If that is the case, then only platform will be liable. Otherwise, platform will give their representation and warranties. You will have to read through those representation warranties. Make sure that the given settings you're making into your platform so that the platform is not liable, because these warranties are very express, right? So you will have to think twice before making a platform as an intermediary and a liable for as an intermediary.
Marco has a question. So Marco, you have a great question, by the way, where you want to know about Web3 implementations. But again, it's not my expertise, right? And we would still, if we are talking about Metaverse, some privacy issues, we'll take this up in our next webinar, right? I'll find someone. Since you have asked this, I'll find somebody who's a Web3 expert, and we will talk about it, right? And it's great to talk about it at Tsaaro platform. Why not? And guys, if you have any ideas for us, if you want to listen to us about something, I know you already would have me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a text saying, hey, this is what I want to hear about. And we will create a webinar. We'll bring the best people in the world to speak at our platforms, to give you knowledge, to keep the knowledge sharing on, right? That is what the goal of Tsaaro is. We're trying to bring privacy. We're fighting for privacy. And that is what we want to go ahead and achieve as a country, right? Especially in India and obviously with Africa as well as Middle East. So, okay. So guys, I'm just taking the last question, right? So if there are any last questions. Okay, this is an important question, so I want to take this up. But this question is out of Metaverse, but this is an important question. Mr. Anand is here, and he's a mentor for a lot of people, so he may be a good guy to answer this. So can you throw some light for a law student in data privacy?
So this question is quite broad, okay? So I'll just try to answer. Let me know if that kind of answer you are expecting. So if you are a law student and especially trying to join the privacy domain, right, you have a lot of avenues. For example, you can be a privacy attorney like Akarsh, me, or any other fellow colleagues, learned counsels who are there on the call. You can be like that. Second, you can be a privacy engineer also, right? To test these platforms and guide from global law perspective. You can be a DPO over the period of time, right? Once you have that adequate credentials, which Tsaaro has. I think, Akash, you also have a certification for DPO, right? For that matter. So once you have those things with you, probably you can be a DPO over the period of time. But again, I would say it's your choice within privacy, whether you want to choose a law side or you want to choose the technology side, where you can be an engineer and help organization design various products, platforms, services by using privacy by design there.
Right, Mr. Anand. I think one of the very close certifications, when you want to certify on Metaverse is also CIPT, right? Where you certify with privacy technology stuff. But again, we are much behind and we need to stay updated. These are ways to get closer, right? This is a one step to there, but it's not 100% guarantee. And there's a huge to do. There's a tons of things to do. So guys, we are coming towards the end of the session, right? We are here to close the session. But again, it was great seeing you, especially people joining from Australia and somebody from the US, Kenya, Africa. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thanks a ton. And obviously Indians, right? We are together. Come on, this is a family, right? So hey guys, right? So don't think that I'm not thanking you, but so I think it's a family now. So it's great to see all of you. It's great. It's a pleasure to host you. It's a pleasure to talk about Metaverse. Thanks a ton for joining the session. And thanks a ton to Mr. Anand Deshpande to join our session, be a speaker here. tell everyone about his knowledge, his experience, his speciality into privacy, throw some light into issues that could arise out of Metaverse. Thanks a ton, sir. Over to you for a thank you note.
Hey, thank you, Akash. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you for inviting me for this session, and also all the audience who are joining from various parts of the world, whether it's India or anybody. And the questions are quite amazing. There's a lot to learn, and for do a research for me also, because I cannot say that I'm the expert. That then I'll be living in a fool's world, right? So there's a lot to explore and learn from these questions also. But yeah, this is quite amazing. Thank you for this platform, Akash.
Thank you, everyone. And my link of connection is here. Just you can drop me a LinkedIn, or you can drop Mr. Anand Deshpande LinkedIn and continue our conversations whatever around this. And yeah, let's see each other soon, guys. Have a nice day, and I'll catch up with you.
Thank you, and have a nice weekend to you all. Bye.